Good morning and welcome. This is the Frank and Jill Show on the Big 550 KTRS. We're here till 12. Connor McCarthy in the house. Dr. Rick at 10:35. Joe Holloman at 11:08. Song of the day, quote of the day. Royal Banks of Missouri text line 84126. So you can watch us on KTRS YouTube, right?
Yep. All you have to do is go to YouTube, type in the Frank and Jill Show or 550 KTRS TV, and you'll see us in our bright summery outfits today, bringing you some good topics for the next 2 hours.
Is everybody on TV on all the radio shows now? All of our shows? Are we the only ones still?
I think they just started up with Heidi and them in the afternoons, and slowly getting the rest herded into the right mindset to do the TV.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spoken very diplomatically over
Well,
there.
I'm not sure what the plan is for them. I'm not involved with their production, so.
McGraw, is he on yet?
I know McGraw wants to, so we'll have to see when he does. And back in the day, McGraw simulcasted onto TV, like TV, not just YouTube.
Like, was he on Channel 2 or 4?
I'm forgetting the channel he was on. I think it was Channel 2. And yeah, you could find, or maybe it was like 2.1. The sub channels.
Okay, yeah.
So he's got experience doing that.
In fact, I was talking to some people from FanDuel last night, Jim Hayes, and they got a big road series coming up where I think they only have like 5 of the 9 games that they're going to be all over, like Apple and all this. I hate that for the older people, but it's just the way it is. If MLB can get another side deal with a TV network, do it right off the bat. So.
Yeah, that's a challenging part because it's just a part of a lot of people's lives, really enjoying have those games on, at least in the background. And so the fact that you got to go on a scavenger hunt to find them or shell out more money than is in some people's budgets, disappointing.
So today, at I think 2, or it could be 3, our friend Keith Kachuk is going to find out if he makes it to the Hockey Hall of Fame. And, 2 weeks after his son wins a Stanley Cup, to make it to the Hockey Hall of Fame, wow. And
so do you have any, what's your best guess in terms of what would you say his chances are?
I would guess yes, but, I mean, he has the most goals for an American who's not in the Hall of Fame. He's got over, 515 goals. So we'll see what happens. But I just couldn't imagine waking up and, knowing this could be happening in 4 hours and doing anything else. I mean, the best thing you can do is play golf or do something and not think about it. But gosh, could that be on your mind? Ooh.
Yeah, for sure. And you're always very good at sort of supporting people who played professional sports in St. Louis on their quest to become immortalized, if you will, in the Hall of Fame, and feeling it deeply when they don't. I'm thinking of Torrey Holt earlier this year in the Football Hall of Fame. Where is the Hockey Hall of Fame located?
Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
Al
makes sense.
McInnes, a Hockey Hall of Famer and a former teammate of Walt's, went on Twitter today saying, "Hey, there's no reason he is not in the Hall of Fame." The Athletic wrote a column about he should be in the Hall of Fame. So this is going to be a big day for St. Louis and for the Blues as they. Connor, you've seen the new sweaters they're going to be wearing, and they're like the Winter Classic ones. They're just gorgeous, aren't they?
Yeah, I actually had it pulled up now. It's that lighter shade of blue. So if you liked that, you're going to see it as the standard home jersey. So I like that. I like that better. I really didn't like the navy about 10, 15 years ago.
Or
that
even
I
worse,
didn't like.
The red.
Oh, you didn't like the red?
Ooh, it's gross. Yeah.
That wasn't your fave. I thought it was great that the Blues Chief Revenue and Marketing Officer Steve Chapman said the decision to pursue the New Jersey stems from how the heritage branding was received during the 2017 Winter Classic. Brett Hull once grabbed me and told me these are the prettiest sweaters I've ever seen. What are we doing?
Wow.
So
nice.
Apparently that had an influence on their decision over time to go back to kind of the original color scheme of that original logo from when the Blues first started.
And the reason teams introduce new uniforms and baseball teams have 3 and 4 is simply to get little Johnny and little Jane to go to Dick's Sporting Goods and buy them. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, if you listen to some of the talk even around the radio station behind the scenes, some of the folks who are big sports fans, not necessarily on-air folks, but saying, "Come on, this is just a money grab. It's frustrating. There's just when they, you got your your
Yeah.
stuff going, then it becomes.
Oh, I don't know if it's
outdated.
just a money grab. I mean, you have to do it every so often. I don't think there's any team that's not like the Yankees or I guess like the Steelers. There's very few teams that just keep the same jersey forever.
I agree.
And
And
they
then
are,
how do
and
you
they
make it a
are
classic?
upgrading. The Blues are upgrading. And I will say this, the Cardinals Saturday night jersey, a classic, it's kind of a retro, that's a good-looking jersey, too.
Well, and how do you make it a classic if you don't change the form of it, the
Yeah.
style of it, so that you can kind of hold on to this is from this era, this is from that era? I think that's part of the fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other than of course, the players' names on the back of the jerseys or on the back of the sweater.
You know he's got some good sports gear, like 50 feet away from us.
I know.
Yeah,
our
Andy had hats and stuff.
Andy had hats and stuff.
He's the
I
best.
know.
I bought a white hat there yesterday because of the sun, or 2 days ago for golf. Perfect. City SC.
I know, that's one thing. We were going to a City SC game, and I had my apparel for SC was for the wrong weather conditions, and it just kind of struck me as I was walking by. And I mean, he had me set up, and the price is right. Honestly, he's not. And Andy's a really nice guy. A lot of fun.
Yeah. So come to Westport, say hi to us in the window, and buy some stuff from Andy. All right, let's take our first break. We'll come back with the opening dialogue on the Frank and Jill Show on the Big 550 KTRS.
That evaporation doesn't happen, keeps us hotter and feeling hotter longer, and makes it more dangerous for us as well, because it kind of interrupts that natural system in our bodies of sweating, evaporation, sweating, evaporation. The other thing, that the reasons behind it seems to be getting hotter, or more humid rather, in the last 40 years include things like more cities. The asphalt and all the concrete holds on to heat over the nighttime process. And so the air doesn't evaporate from things like lakes, streams, rivers, bodies of water. It just stays in that higher than normal evening temperatures. And it doesn't look like the problem is going to go away anytime soon. So enjoy your air conditioning and just bring your sweat rags with you, because nothing's going to be changing for a while here.
I walked back and forth from Busch Stadium to Channel 5 3 different times yesterday, 3:30, 5:30, and then went over there for postgame at 9 o'clock. And each time it was just brutal.
And you have a really high tolerance of heat generally.
Yeah, unless I'm playing golf, I don't even feel it. So, but yeah, it's.
I think this is the dew point. I
Yeah.
think this is what they're talking about, Frank.
He's been trying to get us to ignore it. Frank has for all these years on the weathercast and get right to sports. And now look at what it's very important information.
God bless those fans. All right, thought two. This is for Agnes. Today, a sports thought. It's what people are talking about in St. Louis. The Cardinals have drawn first blood against the Cubs. Gosh, a baseball team can electrify a city. It took 3 months for this rivalry to happen this season. It's worth the wait. For the first time in 5 years, the Cardinals had a game with 4 two-run home runs. The guy I like the most hitting a homer is Nolan Gorman. The fans are down on him. He struggled, but could the light be turning on this month? An OPS of 900. Everything clicked. Matthew Liberatore, who was so good early in the season, then he had some arm fatigue, and last night he told me he felt like he had it back. If he does, the Cardinals have a 25-year-old 6'4" lefty who has a knockout curveball and throws in the mid-90s. This is a weapon, folks. Again, you sweep the Cubs and you're a half game out of first place by Thursday at 4 o'clock. Not likely, but as Jim Carrey once said in Dumb and Dumber, I'm telling you there's a chance. And the mark of a big game is that let's see, I'd say at about 5:35 after I did the live shot, I'm walking through the Cardinal lobby, and I see the great one, Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky at a Cardinal game. I mean, realize how crazy this is. This would be like if you saw Michael Jordan. I mean, Wayne Gretzky in St. Louis, a big chunk of the time because his mother-in-law lives here, and he loves coming back here. I think he has a place in Frontenac, and he loves going to Cardinal games. But just so awesome. Wait a minute, that's Wayne Gretzky in the lobby.
Did you ask him about what he thinks Kachuk's chances are of getting into the Hall of Fame?
I did not. It was a brief conversation. But what I did strategically was I texted my friend Kelly Chase. And I said, Kelly, Wayne's in town. What do you say you help me get him on Sports Plus?
Or on the Frank and Jill show?
Yes.
Or on Press Box, then we can re-air some of it on the Frank and Jill show. Just ideas, folks. Latest trend, according to the Wall Street Journal, is eyeglasses with built-in hearing aids. An idea that many say just makes sense because we know that there's a percentage of people who maybe feel a little self-conscious still about getting hearing aids, but we now know there's a direct correlation between hearing loss and cognitive decline in aging years. So it's not just the audiologists or the people selling the hearing aids that are saying we need these. A lot of other people in the Medicare, neurological, and healthcare fields that say we really are better off when we're not missing out on a lot of what people are saying. There's 2 different versions that are being tested and getting pretty good results so far from the consumers who are testing them, saying that it's not quite as good as the really good hearing aids that you get inside the ears, but the the glasses connect wirelessly to a mobile app. You can tweak volume, choose from 4 presets that amplify at different frequencies. So there's a percentage of folks. There's a guy that I see at Pickleball and chat with him occasionally. He wears his Apple AirPods as his hearing aid devices now. He said they were just a lot more affordable, and he's found them to be helpful in settings where he was having trouble catching all of the things that people were saying, like when he plays pickleball. So that's been an alternative some people are using, but several of the big eyeglass chains are going to start offering these in the next year or 2.
Well, in terms of like advancements in medicine, that ear thing is one of the best. I mean, I remember that first cochlear implant came out. I mean, people like Rush Limbaugh is a perfect example, completely deaf, and he put this thing in his ear, and he could hear everything.
Yeah,
which
not
is-
not quite everything, but it really helped give him
Yeah.
his life back for sure. Yeah, I mean the cochlear implant is one extreme. This is a much less, a
That's a
much
surgery, yeah,
easier
yeah.
intervention to support people. But I think the thing that the message that seems to be everybody's trying to hit home is the longer you go trying to pretend that you don't have some degree of hearing loss, the more you pay later on in terms of things like cognitive decline, social
Yes.
isolation, depression. So it's one of those things, whether you get it in the eyeglasses, whether you wear your AirPods, or you just go to Costco or all the places that sell hearing aids now, probably one of those things that's better to do sooner than later.
Hey, Connor, check this stat. Like people 70 or older who have hearing issues. I wonder how prevalent that is. It seems like it's more prevalent now. I guess it's more because we see them with the device in their ears, but I think a lot of people have it. Or,
Yeah, I
don't know
think
what
it's
the percentage is.
become far more acceptable for people to have it. I mean, I
Yeah,
think people
and
have
it's
been
so
losing their
small.
hearing for a long time.
Yeah. What do you
The quick search says about 2/3, roughly 2/3.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Holy cow. We don't have much to look forward to here.
Well,
Well, maybe you're one of the 1/3.
Yes,
You know?
I hope so. Gosh. All right, thought three, stream of con. Everybody is familiar with this thing in sports called name, image, and likeness, where college kids can get paid. Smet has a young man named Titan Davis. He's a standout defensive lineman who Mizzou wanted badly. He committed to Michigan last night. So I asked a national expert via texting who does this for a living in terms of recruiting. So how much did this 17-year-old senior get to go to the University of Michigan? And he said, I would guess $250,000. Can you imagine if you were like 17 and you got $250,000? What would you do? Would you go right to like Bomarito and say, I'll take this Audi? Or
Well, of course I would, because that's how the 17-year-old brain works.
I know.
It's not. You wouldn't expect them to do anything else, and so it depends on. You'd have to have some people in your life, but then there's already lawsuits from athletes trying to disengage themselves
but
from
you
parental
would go
control.
buy a car.
I think I would when I was 17. I
think-
can't say
and,
for
Let's
sure.
say you put 200 in a mutual fund, you spend 50 on a car. I think
That's
that's okay.
I think part of how the process would work if the brain is there. So real quick follow up on that. Do you there's a change in the latest in the case that came down,
Yeah.
the House case, that says there's a limit now to how much each individual player can get or how much each college can spend, and the colleges are the ones distributing. How much is that going to change for an individual player like this, what they take home in a payout?
Yeah, I don't know. That is one of the big questions. I didn't want to say great question. You get credit for it. Which, by the way, you got one from John Sloan yesterday.
I'm kind of done with the whole question thing because
because
too,
you just got beat so bad.
no, because too often it is just I need another second.
You're right.
It's unwarranted
Okay.
praise, and so we got to come up with something else, a better contest.
All right, a few more. Finished up the TV series, The Better Sister with Jessica Biel and Elizabeth Banks. Pretty good, nice twist at the end, a solid 7.5. On to Stick. The first 5 minutes when Owen Wilson is like Mr. Haney on Green Acres trying to sell a driver to somebody in his shop is incredibly funny. Slows down after that, but it looks like the potential to be a 7.75. I have a buddy who I trust very much in shows, Larry Thornton, who says The Waterfront has a chance to be at a Breaking Bad level. I can't wait to give it a shot. Federhofer's Bakery off Gravois. Have you been there? Beautiful, gaudy sign, really kind of a cool old school bakery. The Monique birthday celebration continued. Anyway, it was book night last night for her, and they all bring in little presents and little trinkets, and they bring her a white birthday cake, white on white, from Federhofer's. It was spectacular, really good. And congrats to Old Town Donuts. They won the national title. Competed like a March Madness bracket, which began on June 5th. And I don't think anybody would argue. They are really great.
The Old Town made it into both of our opening dialogue today because that was a big deal. That was very, very fun news and information. So the rule is you can make fun of the Monique's book club and of
Birthday
the nice way they
celebration.
celebrated.
Oh my gosh.
But then you get to reap the benefits and eat the cake that they provided as that very thoughtful and loving celebration for her. Okay, now that I understand the rules, I got it. A few final tidbits from me. Proud moment we're celebrating from a guest we've had here on the show, Chef Nathaniel Reed, officially inducted into the Académie Culinaire de France USA, one of the most prestigious culinary organizations in the world. The Académie honors chefs who demonstrate exceptional craftsmanship and dedication to the advancement of French cuisine. Ceremony took place at the French Embassy in Washington, D.C., and something new coming to St. Louis for the first time, filling up fast. It's called New Mom School, offers support and community to postpartum women in St. Louis. They're going to have a location, and it will be designed for newborn moms, and then they have other groups for moms of babies 3 to 6 months, and I believe 6 months to a year. It reminds me of back in the day, Mercy used to have newborn group moms, where moms would get together. They'd put them together with people who had just given birth to be able to form connections and friendships and support circles. I wasn't in one of those because I had my babies at St. Mary's, and they didn't have that program there. But many of my friends were, and I got to join in a group of new moms that had formed at Mercy, and I am still very good friends with several of those friends today. From
that is
bonding
nice.
we did when we had our babies all those many, 20-plus years ago as well. And a couple of other tips. The show that I just finally finished last night, can't watch it if you're squeamish, especially about medical stuff, The Pit with Noah Wiley. It's excellent. It's cathartic.
Is it a new series?
On Max. And
Wait a
it's
minute. So I've watched part of the first. How many?
15 episodes,
15.
and it takes place as 15 hours in one day. And so the storylines are incredible. And as sad and heart-wrenching and heartbreaking as some of them are, the next one you have to move very quickly because that's how life works in a major city emergency room. Pretty compelling character development, and I just think it's a very good medical drama if you like that. Last night, met up with some friends and grabbed a meal at Frisco in Webster. It'd been a minute since I've been there. Darn it, they do a very good job. Connor, you're getting ready to go to Michigan. The menu there has a lot of Michigan influence because the owners have some background there as well. So the pasty, which is the pastry with mashed potatoes and meat inside,
Actually, never had that.
Pierogi, very, very
Sure.
good as well. All things I remember from my Michigan vacations as a kid, and I think it's fun. They have them on the menu there.
I've never heard of that first one.
Yeah,
And
you haven't?
I've been there a lot.
It's a meat pie,
Okay.
and they have a whole section of them.
All
They're
right.
well known for them
Okay.
there. So you'll have to ask about it. But no, we always
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I grew up going there, and that was a big
Yeah.
thing in many of the restaurants there,
All
for
right.
sure. Ask your mom. She'll know.
All right.
I guarantee it. Hey, our friends at Capital Advisor Group are the people to ask if you have questions about how to make 2025 a good year for you financially. I know it can feel a little overwhelming. Some people find themselves thinking they're pretty confident when the market's doing well at managing their own funds, and then they start to realize, gosh, I'm not sure I have the strategy to weather ups and downs in the market like what we have seen in the last year. And that's where you decide it's time to reach out to the professional, and then it gets overwhelming to think about who that professional is. Well, lots of the professionals you reach out to don't have a very key, important ingredient, perhaps the most ingredient when choosing a professional. They're not senior tax strategists. They don't do what's called tax-informed investment strategy. And that's something you're definitely going to want to think about when you hire your professional, your wealth management professional. Jeff Sufal and his team do have that tax information. How do we know? He's written a best-selling book on the subject, Keep What's Yours. It's the name of the show he does every single weekend here with Josh Gilbert on KTRS, the Big 550 on Saturdays. It's a great show with great information. You'll learn something and feel empowered about your money every single week. But if you really want to make sure that you're getting the most for your money and you reach your retirement goals, reach out to Jeff today. CapitaLadvisoryGRP.com or give him a call, 636-394-5524.
All right, welcome back. Frank and Jill Show. On Tuesdays at about this time every week, we chat with the great Dr. Rick Lehman, who visited with our owner and general manager earlier today, Mark Dorsey. I know there's HIPAA laws, but I understand that he has heart issues because he gives it so much every day to this station. Can you confirm or deny?
Well, he does. And what he said, the first thing he said is he wanted to give Frank and Jill a raise because they were doing such a good job. So I thought that was a good place to start our conversation.
Couldn't agree more. I think that's absolutely great. Hey, you sent us some interesting new data that's talking about the fact that excess belly fat has a surprising link to a chronic skin condition. I don't think of those two things going hand in hand. Tell us more about that.
You know, it was shocking to me, really. I mean, so excess belly fat, we think of you know, high incidence of cardiovascular disease, shortening your life. And there is a significant correlation between increased body fat and psoriasis. So skin disease, which can be not terrible or can be absolutely devastating. Big patches of skin, crusty, pain, burning. So psoriasis can be terrible, and it can also lead to joint disease, so psoriatic arthritis. So again, high incidence of belly fat, higher incidence of psoriasis. So for those people that have excess belly fat, it's probably very reasonable to try and shut the door and try to get rid of that excess belly fat. And again, we've talked many times about ways to do it, but I think you have to get focused and understand that this is not good for you.
A new study out to prevent tooth loss in aging adults. Tell me about it.
Well, this is this is a big deal. And the reason is when you have problems with your teeth, I think it's a psychological thing, right? You don't smile, you feel you're embarrassed, you're a little depressed, etc. And one of the main things about having good tooth health is being a lot more confident, assured of yourself, etc. Boosts your mood. So it's not just a matter of, I lost a couple teeth or this or that. I think it has unbelievable mental health implications. And I think the big things are gum disease. You want to have an electric toothbrush if you can afford one. You want to brush your teeth 2-3 times a day. You want to floss every day. You really want to make sure if you have any problems with your gums, you get after it to your dentist. So I think that's a big factor. If you have dry mouth, there's medications for it. You want to sip water throughout the day. And I think that's also very important. And the other thing is to see your dentist. I mean, I think it's important to see your dentist when you need to see your dentist. So if something's going on, don't wait for your 6-month checkup. If your tooth is loose, if you're having pain, if you think you might have an infection, go see your dentist. And then the last thing is, and I know I'm a terrible, don't chew a lot of gum. Don't leave mints in your mouth all day, because that basic keeping your gums and your mouth loaded with sugar all day is very defective in terms of your gums. So again, if you chew gum, brush your teeth. If you have a meal, rinse your mouth out, and just be a little bit cognizant of your gum health.
I would imagine quite a few of our listeners either know somebody, a kid or a grandkid or somebody in their life who's had to deal with peanut allergies, which can be really scary. And there's been some good news on that front for people that have had to struggle with this in many cases their whole life.
Well, first of all, I don't know how many of these stories I've heard, but a lot where people either died or almost died of a peanut allergy at all. I had a NFL football player in my house. I don't know what happened. And all of a sudden he says, "Oh my God, there was something I ate that had peanuts in it." We ended up rushing him to the hospital, and and he went through the whole EpiPen and adrenaline, et cetera, and everything turned out to be fine. And he says it happens about every 3 or 4 months, because even though things say they don't have peanuts in them, they do have peanuts in them. So having this allergy is no joke. And the change, so when I was going through it, pediatrics 200 years ago, you kept the kids away from any kind of peanuts, any kind of nuts, any kind of tree nuts, and that was the way you treated it. Now everything is 100% different, and what the mantra is you give these kids very small amounts of either peanut fluff, or you titrate just a little bit. You don't give them nuts, but things that have a little bit of peanut in them, and then you progress that over a period of time until their allergy is resolved. And it seems to actually work almost 100%. So for parents out there that either have a family history of peanut allergy or one of their kids have a peanut allergy. If you have a newborn or a grandson or a son or a daughter, it doesn't make any difference. Then what you want to do is you want to introduce them 4 to 6 months, very low doses of peanut, and there's a number of things you can use out there, peanut, kind of dilute the peanut butter, etc., and then gradually increase their intake, and then over a period of time they won't have an allergy.
We know that people are coming back, athletes, from serious injuries a lot quicker nowadays. I'm wondering, like with Jason Tatum and now Tyrese Halliburton, that used to be at least a year. What do you think now? Have we made significant improvements with this also?
Well, I think the whole mantra's changed. So probably about 7 or 8 years ago, we started using something called fiber tape to repair these. So it used to be almost a death knell, right? It was a career-ending injury, tore your Achilles, nothing you could do. You repaired it, didn't work, blah, 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 didn't get your push off. And then probably starting with Kobe, he came back, took him a little bit, but he came back. And then as techniques got better, and just like your iPhone 10 being an iPhone 20 and an iPhone 30, technology has won the war here. And so what we're using, the strength of the material that we're using and the techniques that we're using to repair these is so much better that now we almost like ECLs, we absolutely tell our athletes, hey, it's going to take you 3 or 4 months. You're going to come back. You're going to get your ups back. We'll start working on your vertical in about 8 weeks, et cetera. And the program is very accelerated, number one. And number two, the technique and the materials, and I think the materials are the big ticket, are so strong that we rarely see re-tears. So, again, it's a completely different injury. Now, when you watched it the other night, you could see his gastroc draw up as he tore his Achilles. I mean, he knew he tore his Achilles before he hit the ground, but actually there was a couple of views of it in the game, and you could actually see that Achilles give way and the calf just go straight up towards his knee. You know, and if you're an orthopedist or a therapist, I mean, that's a disgusting thing to look at.
Yeah, that was not fun to watch for anybody who's ever had a knee injury. I speak from experience there. Hey, a text in, somebody wants to know, they're finally getting around as a postmenopausal woman to start lifting weights, but very, very sore after every single workout. How sore is too sore, and any advice on what to do about it?
Yes, and yes. Good question. Great question. So here's the thing. You probably want to increase your rest phase a little bit on when you're lifting. So you don't want to stop lifting. If you're really, really sore, your recovery phase needs to maybe be a day or two before you go back, or a different body part. There are a couple of tricks of the trade. One of them is to take a little Tylenol or a little anti-inflammatory before you lift, so 20, 30 minutes before you lift and 20, 30 minutes after you lift. So one ibuprofen before, one ibuprofen, or one Tylenol before, one Tylenol after, and that will help your soreness. Drinking a little bit of quinine will help, and I usually tell people get a bottle of quinine and drink a third of it before you lift. That seems to help. And then the biggest thing is to aggressively ice when you're done lifting. So if you're lifting up your body, throw some ice packs on your shoulders, your elbows, whatever's sore. But you're going to be sore. You don't want to be miserably sore. And again, if your recovery phase takes an extra day, meaning you lift on Monday and then not till Wednesday or Thursday, that's fine. You just don't want to overload.
One final one. Glass bottles found to have 5 to 50 times as many microplastics as plastic bottles. Explain this.
Well, so the little cap things are creating microplastic breakdowns in these glass bottles. It's the exact opposite of what you think, right? Plastic's got to be terrible, and we've been telling people for years, don't use plastic bottles, use filtered water from your tap, and now you read that these plastic bottles have tons and tons of microplastics, and the stuff's all in your laundry and everywhere. So, again, a couple of tricks of the trade. One is to clean the cap before you drink from it. And number two, as much as I hate to say it, plastic bottles are better. The best thing to do is just, get filtered water from your tap and stay away from the whole enchilada. I think in the future, because they're banned in Europe, plastic bottles are going to be banned in the U.S., and I think they're going to have to come up with a way that we're not breaking down the microplastics in the caps, because that is a big problem.
Good stuff, Dr. Rick. We will talk next week. Thank you so much for your time.
You guys take care. Thank you.
All right.
And great news that we're going to be getting a raise, according to our boss, who we saw earlier today. So that is going to
Yeah,
make
it's
our day.
be a nice gesture. I think it's well warranted.
Yeah, extremely. Hey, something that is actually really well warranted is the praise that we hear from our listeners when it comes to Ryan Raphael, the Medicare man. We've heard multiple times from people saying, hey, I listened to you talk about him. I've heard him be interviewed on your show. He's so knowledgeable. I decided to give him a call, and he really helped us find what we need. And that includes people who have reached the age of 65 a while ago, qualified for Medicare a while ago, and then something changed in your life. You needed some different kinds of prescriptions. You have a provider that's treating an ailment that didn't exist when you first signed up for your Medicare plan. Ryan can help with all of that as well. If it's time for you to try to find somebody else to meet the current needs you have in this season of your retirement life, Ryan is the person that can walk through all those variables with you and help make sure that you have the exact right plan for you. It's extremely valuable information. You would think that you'd have to pay a lot for it, but you don't, because under the law, Ryan's fees are paid by the insurance companies. So it's free advice to you that could really make a very positive difference in your life. You can reach out to Ryan. He'll give you his cell phone number. Here it is, 314-368-6808. Or visit Ryan Raphael, the Medicare man, at MedicareManSTL.com.
You can shop them online today, see their entire inventory of over 12,000 vehicles at Bomarito.com.
Lots of questions about the Dr. Rick comment about a French study that showed that when people buy drinks in glass bottles with plastic lids, that they have more microplastics than those that are in plastic bottles. The quick fix, according to the article that he sent accompanying the information he sent us, says all you have to do is if a glass bottle beverage you buy has a plastic lid, you blow on the caps and rinse them with water. That will help reduce any microplastics that migrate into the liquid by up to 60%. So hopefully that's helpful for those of you following up with questions on the text line. Frank, your question earlier about the new police board taking over. A couple people asked if they wondered if Governor Kehoe had reached out to Gabe Gore with any input, and a couple people saying definitely agree. Mary
I wonder
Lynn,
if he did, though, on Gabe Gore.
I don't know. I don't know that information. Summary from Mary Lynn, I think she summarizes what several people thought as well. I agree with Frank. Fresh eyes in the police department certainly can't hurt. It has been broken.
Yeah, I mean, who knows if it's going to work with this 5, but with the way it's gone, why not try something different? And we know the people, by the way, or at least I know some of the people extremely well, and I know they're proud St. Louisans who've spent their lives in the city, who want nothing but the best for the city, who have a definite skill set. Whether it translates to this, we'll find out. But I like the idea of doing something different.
Yeah, and I think it always bodes well for people who have very, very busy lives, have been successful in their private life, that they're willing to commit to what is a public service endeavor like this. I mean, we always talk about that with Gabe Gore. There's a lot more lucrative things he could be doing with his life at this point. These guys have a lot of things they could be doing with their time that would earn them more prestige and money, and instead they're hopefully going to be able to influence positively what's happening with crime in our city.
And I have texted Chris and Eddie to be a part of the program. They can hold off for now, but I think we'll get them on the air pretty quickly.
Yeah, that'll be great. We have a great second hour coming up for you on the Frank and Jill Show, including lots to talk about with Joe Holloman. Some big news today about population loss in St. Louis. Nordstrom's leaving the Galleria. What are Joe's thoughts on all of those things? Breaking news today. We'll get that coming up right after the news. Stay with us.
museum says is their largest new feature since 2018. Their website says step into Labyrinth, a first-of-its-kind experience where art, architecture, and adventure intertwine. Every twist leads to a new story. The new experience will include the Labyrinth's maze and a slide that the museum says is their third largest and one of their fastest, bringing guests through the center of the museum and onto the second floor. Labyrinth opens at City Museum on the 4th of July. Sobe Bay, KTRS News.
This KTRS Business Minute brought to you by Walter Knoll Florist, the place for all your floral needs. You can place your order anytime at WKF.com. In the markets, the Dow is up 356 points at 42,938. NASDAQ up 216 at 19,847. And the S&P 500 up 47 at 6,072. In sports, Mizzou football has received a commitment from running back Max Warner out of Chicago. Warner had offers from Illinois and Miami, among others. And the Cards won 8-2 over the Cubs. Game 2 is tonight. Our forecast calls for a heat advisory to remain in effect until 9 p.m. on Thursday. Partly sunny today, a 20% chance for an isolated shower today and tonight. Look for a high today near 96 with heat index values as high as 104 both today and tomorrow. An overnight low tonight in the upper 70s, a 30% chance for scattered rain tomorrow with a high near 97. At 7 minutes past 11 o'clock, partly cloudy, 90 degrees at the Gold Tower at Westport. Steve Potter, KTRS News, the talk of St. Louis.
Great song, Connor. Welcome back. This is the Frank and Jill Show on the Big 550 KTRS. Joe Holloman joins us every Tuesday. Before we get to the serious stuff, Old Town Donuts won the national championship, voted the best donuts in America. Joe, if the world were going to end, your last donut in St. Louis would be from where and why?
Donut Drive-In.
Oh, yes.
Close to my house. I can walk there. So, so if the world's going to end, I'm guessing time is of the essence. So, I mean, basically, I've never really had a bad donut, just some that are better than others.
That is
it's
so
sort
well
of like,
put. Yeah.
It's sort of like ice cream.
Yeah.
I've never had where I went, I just can't eat this ice cream. It's just some is better than others. But Donut Drive-In, I kind of grew up in that area. There's a lot of great places. Donut Stop down in Lime. Old Town is fabulous. John Doe downtown. I mean, I'm really I'm a bad choice here because I'll eat any of those donuts.
Well, you're so right.
But
how many people have had bad donuts? I mean, look, Schnucks is not known for their donuts. Their donuts are really good.
Yeah, I think
they make a glazed croissant that is to die for. So I mean, it's sort of like if you take dough, drop it in boiling fat, and then coat it with some sugary substance. Count me in. I'll give it a whirl.
Don't you agree, though, it has to be fresh, though? I would say the difference between a donut and ice cream is I think it's far better when it's a fresh one.
Good thought, yeah. All right,
so it's true. It's true, though, if you take a stale one and pop it in a microwave for about 5 seconds, it's almost like being fresh again.
That's true.
News you can
so
use.
how big a deal is the Nordstrom's moving out of the Galleria? I mean, they only have 2 vacancies. It's going to be replaced right away by Dick's. How big a story is this?
Not being a shopper, I'm probably the worst person to do it because when it comes to shopping, I'm one of those people who, though I'm no high-tech guy, online was like made for me because if I never have to step into a mall, I'm okay with that. And I can order things online. But, you hate to see a business, especially one with the name value of Nordstrom. Not that they sell items that I'm buying anytime soon, but I don't think it's good when any business leaves, but as long as you don't end up with yet another empty storefront, I think you're probably okay. But I don't think it's good. Do I think it's catastrophic? Probably not.
A lot of people pointing out in conversations here and other places this morning that when you combine the look of having, Nordstrom's deciding that our, flagship mall, if you will, it's not going to be one of the flagship stores there, along with the report on the population decline, even places like St. Charles County, which have said, oh, too bad the rest of the region, you guys are losing population, we're not. The growth has definitely slowed considerably there, and it seems to be the point where leaders are taking it a lot more seriously than anybody has in a long time. Population decline is a big deal here. Your thoughts on that?
Well, population decline, certainly the city, has its problems, which has caused people to move to the county. The county's developed a problem, which is getting people moved to St. Charles and Jefferson County. Now, I think part of it can be explained by the natural boomerang effect, that the city spreads out, and then at some point in time, it comes back in. So you have a lot of young people who were raised in St. Charles County, St. Louis County, want the experience of living in the city. So you move, they move back into the city. The youngsters call them hipsters, call them Gen X, Gen Z, whatever you want to call them. They move back in the city to get that urban experience. Now, then again, you have problems on top of that. So many people I know, and this has been true now of several generations because I'm old, but I had so many friends who weren't Catholic, so they didn't send their kids to Catholic schools, lived in the city, loved the city. As soon as they became of school age, they moved to the county so their kids could go to county schools. So there's a lot of factors that you have to take into account when it comes to population expansion and how far away from the city core it moves. I think the wild card really here was what happened during COVID, which is the world working online, remote working. Mm-hmm. It used to be that if you worked in Clayton or downtown, living in Wentzville just didn't make any sense. But now there are so many people who can do their jobs from 100 miles away, and they can live wherever they want to and still work for, let's say, a downtown company or a Clayton company. So I think that's a factor that we normally didn't have to put up with, that boomerang effect where people moved away and then they moved back, and it kind of went back and forth. I think now you can get people who live in St. Peter's, O'Fallon, Wentzville, you name it, Rolla, and still have a job in St. Louis, if you will, because of remote working. And I think that all came under COVID. And I think that's something that probably won't change. When I talk to younger people, that's a big, important deal to them is, can I work remotely? Almost like that's a built-in for the job. How many days a week do I have to come in? So I think that's one thing that we have to grapple with when it comes to people moving away from the urban centers, that they literally just don't have to be there like they used to.
The local reaction to the U.S. Nuclear, the attack on the nuclear sites in Iran is interesting because you have Josh Hawley and Eric Schmidt, both Republicans, supporting Trump. And then you have Illinois United States Senators Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth criticizing it. But I think the fascinating one is Wesley Bell, who praised the military and then criticized Trump, questioning him if he has the right to do it without approval from Congress, which was previous presidents have done the same, doing it without the approval of Congress. What's your kind of reaction to the whole thing?
Well, and I put a little bit of it together. I find it to be much ado about nothing, and I say that not that the attack is much ado about nothing. Of course, a serious situation, but what we find here is this breaks down along partisan lines. And what I find interesting is, and this happened before when Biden and Obama attacked Syria, and Yemen. They'll criticize the politicians' process, but they want to make very careful that they're not criticizing what occurred. And I think that's what we have here. Everybody took great pains to say Iran is dangerous. We're not supporting Iran. That said, we don't like the way the president went about it. And that kind of happens every single time. So personally, I don't pay a lot of attention to that. There's nobody just saying this was an egregious attack on an innocent country, or, this was a war crime. Everybody was being very careful to say, hey, we don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons. Now, what can we criticize the fill in the blank of what party it is? How can we criticize them? And so what you end up doing is criticizing the process. And I think we saw that under the Elon Musk committee. Everybody agrees that government needs to do away with waste, fraud, and abuse. There's nobody out there going, no, the government runs like a Swiss watch. Mm-hmm. Nobody's saying that. But what they have to do is pick their spots. We believe we should cut waste. We just don't want this waste cut. And that's kind of what's happened here. Nobody's saying that this attack was a terrible attack. It was unjust. We should never. I shouldn't say nobody is. Most politicians are not saying that. And so now what they have to do, though, is criticize who's ever in power for doing it, quote unquote, the wrong way. And I think that's what we're seeing here.
Help us to understand, Joe Holloman, a little bit the line that Josh Hawley is going to be walking here, because on the one hand, he's been critical of the big, beautiful budget bill because of Medicaid cuts that could really impact rural health care in Missouri, and in many cases actually eliminate hospitals that are serving fairly large geographic areas in the state. On the other hand, there's some legislation that would help people in our area who have been victimized by the pollution in some of the area waterways. How does he balance the support of one thing in the bill with the issues on the other side of it in the bill, do you think, in the end?
Well, and that's why they get the big bucks, right? So is it who can walk that tightrope the best? I think the thing with Medicaid that people are, I think when I look at the media reports on it, is that people believe when they say Josh Hawley is, against all Medicaid cuts. Not true. Mm-hmm. He absolutely has said, yes, if there's better documentation and work requirements, let's get some people off these rolls. So when you get the Democrat side saying, oh, Josh Hawley doesn't mind people being cut from the rolls, they're absolutely right. He's said that. We want to get the waste, fraud, and abuse out of that. What we don't want to do is remove working Americans from it. Now, those are the kind of details that in modern media get completely lost. So from every time that I have talked to him, he has never said, I just want to keep the Medicaid rolls just like they are. No, he's saying people are going to get cut out. People are going to get dropped, and we think they should get dropped out. I think where they have that problem is in a thing, and I don't want to bore the listeners, but it's called a provider fee or provider tax, and it's how states can get reimbursed for their expenses. And this is really important, not so much to St. Louis hospitals, but rural hospitals pretty much live and die by being able to get reimbursements because they have such a high amount of people using Medicaid at their facilities that they need this. The House wanted to keep that tax at 6%, freeze it, okay, which proponents of Medicaid would like it increased. House said, let's keep it at 6%. Senate said, let's drop it to 3.5%. And that's where I think it's going to be interesting to see where people like Jim Justice from West Virginia is also with Josh Hawley, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, Collins from Maine. There's a group of about a half a dozen senators who are saying, hey, we have to protect these small hospitals. We have a lot of small hospitals in our states. And not only is it bad for them to shut down because people can't get health care, the people who work at those hospitals lose their job, and those people then all come into the city, thereby flooding city hospitals with more things to do. So it's going to be a real tightrope walk because you have some people who just want to cut. And I think this is where instead of using the axe, you have about a half a dozen senators who want to use a scalpel. And I think that's what we're going to see this week and next week. The idea that this budget is going to get done by July 4th, I find to be wishful thinking. But I think that's a very difficult thing to do, is to say I'm going to protect. I want to cut, but I want to be surgical in these cuts. And Congress is not known for being surgical. So, I mean, that's a long way of saying we'll wait and see. But Senator Hawley and a couple of other senators have put themselves out on the line saying we have to protect some of these smaller hospitals. And those smaller hospitals kind of get lost because we in the media centers don't think about them. You know, we have big hospitals here in St. Louis, good hospitals here in St. Louis. So we don't think about that little community hospital out in, for the lack of a better way, in the middle of nowhere or out in the country that is the absolute first and sometimes only choice that people have for health care. And they have to remain viable. And I think that's where the senators have to really balance between let's cut the budget, but let's make sure people can get their illnesses taken care of. And it's a tough road to hoe, and I'm interested to see how it's going to go.
Even the most optimistic St. Louisans can't deny that the St. Louis Police Department is hundreds of officers short. The response time is delayed. So yesterday, the big news, Mike Kehoe's picks for the reconstituted St. Louis Board of Police Commissioners. Some of them are successful businessmen who live in the city, who care about the city. Your reaction to the picks?
I think they're fine. I think the complaint comes is that we should have, why don't we have criminologists in that? We're not officers. It's a police board to oversee. And so you let the chief and the lieutenant colonels and the majors and the detectives, they're the ones who do the job. And I don't see an inherent problem with having caring, dedicated members of a community who are there to overlook the process. They're not there to run the department. That belongs to Chief Tracy, and he answers for that. So the idea that we have citizens on that board, I don't see what the problem is. Now, is it the right citizens? Of course. Everybody wants the type of citizen they wanted on the board. So activists want activists. Businessmen want businessmen. And, everybody wants their own special interest taken care of. But I think the idea is you have a conscientious, honest board that keeps an eye on what the police department does, and the mayor is on that board. So there's still a civic oversight, a person who has to answer to the people, if you will. I don't see an inherent problem with it, just as there was, I don't ever remember the police board in the past where they said, well, it's the police board that's ruining the police department. I don't think that was ever the case. Even when they switched to local control, it was just, we don't want the state overlooking us. But nobody was saying that the police board was doing an egregious job of running the police department, because if you go back 15 years ago, the workforce was higher and the response times were better. So that can't be true. On its face, that can't be true. So I think it's like any other board. You hope to hire good, honest people of integrity, and you put them on there and you see where it goes. And when those terms are up, if they haven't done a good job, you don't reappoint them.
Joe Holloman, as always, interesting takes on a variety of topics today. We really appreciate it. What are you doing to keep cool in this real summer we've gotten this week?
Well, I made the mistake this weekend of riding my bike and realized how hot it was out there. And so what I'm doing is staying inside. Is what I'm doing, and taxing my air conditioner to the maximum. So
yeah, same.
Lazy.
We thought we were getting out early enough, and that the breeze on the bike would help combat the humidity, but it didn't work very well. Maybe it's just our age. You think?
Well, I was going to bring that up, but and God knows I have a bigger problem with that than you do, Jill. So, but yeah, I could feel every one of my years on about the last 5 miles of my bike ride. So I could feel it running down into my eyes. So it was brutal out there Saturday. So, but yeah, so I'm taking it easy, and it's a good excuse for me not to mow the lawn. So.
Okay, good. Way to stay safe out there. Follow the advice of the people that say stay out of the heat and hydrate. Hydrate well. Joe, always good to have you. We'll look forward to next week as well.
You too. Have a great day.
That's fun. Are you a cyclist at all?
I used to go to Forest Park. Haven't been in a long time now, but it's really cool. How about that one strip at Forest Park when you're really kind of closer to the highway and you don't even have to pedal? You're just going so fast and the wind is so cool. I mean, that is a real high. That is neat.
Yeah. Each direction in Forest Park when you cycle that has one good section of downhill and a couple good sections of uphill that'll catch you. It's a decent workout for sure. Yeah, Joe's a big cyclist. So if he's saying it's a little too hot for him to get out there, then you know it's pretty darn hot outside. Speaking of the heat, it is time for Christmas in July. What in the heck is that, you say, Jill? It's Christmas is many months away. Well, the Salvation Army doesn't get to stop thinking about Christmas at all at any time throughout the year, no matter what the calendar says, because, of course, they provide Christmas for over 6,500 children in the St. Louis region that wouldn't have much Christmas at all through their Angel Tree Project. It's an important part of what they do to try to support our community and support the neediest children in our community who have nothing to do with the situation they're living in, and to make sure that they get the same kind of joy out of the holiday season that other people that have more money are able to do. So this year, we know that the need is going to be greater than it has been in past years because of the number of families that were impacted in North St. Louis by the May 16th tornado. And that's why the Salvation Army wants you to be thinking now about how you can be part of making Christmas great for kids in our community. We have partnered with them at KTRS along with our friends at Westport to join with the Salvation Army to have a Christmas in July celebration right here at Westport. We're going to have 2 different movie nights, the incredible screen outside in the courtyard area, just down the escalator from our studios here outside. It's a really fun place to hang out, eat lunch any day of the week, but it's a great place to bring your family to watch a movie. Think kind of old-fashioned drive-in movie, only you'll be just sitting on a blanket on the ground enjoying 2 different family-friendly movies on 2 different dates, Finding Nemo on the 11th of July and The Sandlot on the 18th of July. And all you have to do to enjoy that fun-free family night is to bring a new unwrapped toy with you when you come down here to watch the movie night at Westport for the Christmas in July celebration, and you will be helping the Salvation Army do one of the most important things it does, and that is helping to make Christmas bright for thousands and thousands of families in the St. Louis area. You can go to ktrs.com to get more information. We'll be right back after this.
St. Louis is home to more than 80,000 University of Missouri St. Louis alumni, where they drive the region's economy and contribute to its social and cultural well-being. At also more is what moves us. Find your more and build more connections at more.umsl.edu.
Welcome back to the Frank and Jill Show, 11:30 on the dot on this Tuesday, hot and hazy morning, soon to be a even hotter and hazier afternoon. We hope you are someplace cool or at least enjoying a cool beverage in the shade if you got to be outside. Very glad you are with us on the show today. First day of summer happened at the end of last week, and the thermostat decided it was going to match up with the calendar perfectly this year. Temperatures rose precipitously, so to speak, and we had some real summer over the weekend. So we have picked some summertime songs for the Song of the Week this week, including this one, I think, which originally came from the musical Porgy and Bess, done by lots of great jazz artists through the years, but perhaps none better than Ella Fitzgerald. I mean, that voice is
Nice.
just so good. Isn't she just amazing?
Very nice.
Written by George Gershwin, again from I guess it was considered an opera, not a musical. Do you guys know what the difference between the two is? Is there no dialogue that's not sung in an opera?
I think so. I don't know anything else. I don't know what else would classify them, though.
Yes,
Yeah.
I learned that in elementary music, which was a very, very long time ago. So I can't say that I know exactly what the difference is between those, but I think it's interesting. Frank, you have been known to feature in your sports features through the years some senior athletes who are defying the odds. A New York woman named Jerry Leo, still crushing it at the gym at 100 years old. Listen to some of the things that she is still able to do.
Wow.
Yeah, a 5-minute plank. Can you do a 5-minute plank?
Probably.
You probably could. I
Yeah.
could not. I don't think I could do 5 minutes. Yeah, that's I mean, that is really. I know Dr. Rick says he regularly does a 3-minute plank. So I tested myself and did that to see if I could keep up with Dr. Rick, and the answer was barely. I don't think I could have gone all the way to 5 minutes.
You can Google right now, YouTube KSDK 105-year-old golfer. And I'm looking at it on TV right now. I did this story. I think I did one at 100, and then I did one of him at 105. His name is Jay Strauss, and 105 years old. He turned 100 when we did this story, but I think I did one when he was older too. And he just hit the ball just beautifully out at Westwood Country Club. He was a great guy, and he had a lot of great sports memorabilia at his house. And I remember he said, "Do you have a son that could help me out?" So Alex went to his house and then packaged some of this stuff and sold it on him, sold some of the stuff for him on eBay. But I'm looking at his swing right now. I mean, a lot of old people don't get the club back all the way, but he took a full swing. He was just beautiful. Yeah. he was great.
How long ago did he pass away?
Probably about 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. I remember seeing him at Lester's a couple of times, and he'd always introduce this woman. Well, this is my girlfriend, so-and-so.
And he was a different person every time?
Yeah, a couple of times, yeah. But, I mean, this is my girlfriend.
My grandfather lived to be, I believe, either 90 or he was either 89 or 90, and he golfed until right at the end. And his friend Ralph, who he golfed with, was like 12 or 13 years older than him. And he said, Ralph's great to golf with, but he's just constantly complaining about how hard it is to find a good girlfriend in your 80s because none of them keep up with you anymore.
Huh.
So I said, well, that's rough for Ralph.
There's a part of me that's afraid that I'm going to live like really, really old. I mean, to be, and I don't want to live a day on this earth unless Monique is alive with me. But I just have this funny feeling that I'm going to live a long, long time. I don't know. How about you?
And you'll still be golfing the
definitely,
whole time. Yeah, and another story in National Geographic about a doctor, the world's oldest practicing doctor, is 102. And did you ask the person
Jay-
that you were
Jay
referring,
Strauss.
Jay, what his secrets to living so long and so vibrantly were?
I did. In fact, Connor, I may just send this to you. Well, maybe we'll play it. I know I included it in the package. It's the 2-minute and 6-second package. But yeah, he gave some really good tips. And maybe I think it was about sweating the small things, which we all do, and it's all ridiculous, and we know it's ridiculous.
Okay, well, we'll bring you a little more details on that after a break in just a minute. But if some tips that we have for living a more joyful life include taking some great trips and doing some incredibly exciting travel. And that sounds great on paper, but it can be harder to do if you're the one that is tasked with doing the planning. All of us have had that experience where we saw the thing on the internet, whether it was the hotel, the tour, the location, that looked amazing. And then when we actually got there, it did not quite live up to what we expected. Well, that's an experience that you will never have if you use our friends at Altair Travel and Cruises to plan your next trip. They make sure that when they help you book, whether it's the tour with a company that are tried and true and tested by them, the location, the ways to get there, they do their research. They make sure that you have the experience of a lifetime on every trip, and they have a really well-staffed organization. So if something happens on a trip, like weather that wasn't expected, or travel strikes by train companies or anything like that can happen to people while they're on trips, they've got a full staff here in St. Louis on the ground, making sure that they can help you pivot on the fly to still have an incredible experience, whatever it is you're doing. 314-968-9600 or altairtravel.com. That's Altair Travel and Cruises. good song. Connor, as always, Tuesday morning, almost afternoon, here on the last few minutes of the Frank and Jill Show. Very glad you're joining us. Jill Farmer, Frank Cusimano, talking about those people who are lucky enough to live into, well, hopefully they consider themselves lucky enough to be living past the century mark for sure. And you were talking about one of the favorite stories you ever did on the golfer who was still out swinging on the links at, what was his age again?
I am looking at another one, 2021, and he's 107 in this story. I mean,
also a golfer?
yes. I'm trying to listen to a soundbite. See if you can find this one. It's called Local Golf Inspiration. Oh, he dies at 107. And then we went back and did a little retrospective on him. But yeah, he was great. His name is Jay Strauss, played at Westwood. Everybody at Westwood knew who he was. And he was something else.
Do you think you're going to be golfing at age 100, Frank?
I hope so.
Well, I mean, do you think that having something that you really enjoy doing that actually involves still going out and taking a walk, even if you consider it, what was Mark Twain's line, a good walk ruined, that is
Good
part
walk
of the
spoiled,
reason?
John Feinstein, yeah. Go ahead.
That's kind of what helps people. Do you think it helps in the process of keeping them young and spry and able to do what they're doing, or you think it's just coincidental?
For sure. I think that, the biggest appeal of golf, as I always compare it to trying to get a woman to like you, or if you're a woman, a man to like, is that you can never conquer it. And once you think, you just try so hard, but it just never, complies with you.
Well, and I mentioned a 102-year-old doctor.
That's what's so appealing.
Yeah, I think you make up a really great point. At 102, the world's oldest practicing doctor, the thing that he says is that he really thinks that retirement is overrated. He thinks that the fact that he started back, he fought in World War II. He was a chief neurologist for the Navy in the Korean conflict. He continued to love learning about medicine. He got a law degree at the age of 69 and still does consulting. He thinks that the idea that he's constantly been learning new things, which being a medical doctor requires you to do, you have to be learning about new data, new studies all the time. And that, and just physically the fact of, walking the rounds at the hospital and the fact that he needed to keep moving contributed greatly to his ability. He doesn't believe that any one diet works for everybody, so he's not one of those that's never eat that or always eat that. He said just the common sense.
Well, with that said, and I think there's something to be said for continuing learning and having challenges and stuff. That's great. But there's also a lot of people you run into, and I'm sure you do, that have retired that say it's the greatest thing they ever did. They wish they would have done it earlier, because there's only a certain stretch of your life where you're going to be healthy enough to enjoy great things.
I think that's exactly right. And I think there's so many variations and factors. Personality, what job you have. There's a lot of jobs in the world that have very low agency or autonomy and high pressure. And over time, that grinds people down, where you don't have a lot of choice over your time and what it is you do and how you do it when it comes to work. And there's this pressure to perform. And over time, that sucks away some of the joy that you have in life.
Yeah.
And so to be able to get out from under that can really help with, I think, enjoying retirement as well. And I think you make a really good point. Just because one guy wants to work till he's 102 as a doctor doesn't mean that's a prescription that everybody else should keep working forever.
Yeah,
It's just his
I run
story.
into some former coaching friends of mine who are in that stage that if they got 30 years in the Missouri public schools, they have this great retirement where they make 85% of their best 3 years. And it just, they could get out when they're 55 if they started. And they think, wow. And then some of them get another job, some of them don't, but they're fine financially.
Yeah, and I've had the experience of working with people who have retired early. They worked for, their whole goal was to retire in their mid-50s, and sometimes it frees them up to do things that maybe were more meaningful for them, not as lucrative, so they could do something to serve, the rest of humanity better. Other times they come back and say, I need some support, I need some coaching, because I'm discovering I'm majoring in the minors now. I'm really I care too much about stuff like the back section of my little lawn that's not growing grass at the same level, or I'm talking, some of my friends are like, hey, you need something else in your life. You're talking about stuff that doesn't really matter all the time now, or you're too obsessed with politics because you have too much time to watch it on TV all the day and it has nothing to do with your daily life and how you're making a difference in the world. And I think that's something people have to watch out for as well.
What if that really intrigues you the most, though? You just can't get enough. You're a politics junkie and you want to hear what both sides are saying and then formulate your own opinion.
Well, if you're a political scientist and you're thinking about it on a higher level, it's great. If you're listening to the conflict entrepreneurs agree with what your philosophy around a particular politics is, you're going to shrink the white matter in your brain. It's not healthy for you any more than it would be eating the same kind of junk food is healthy for you all the time. You got to balance it out a little bit.
Getting some free coaching here. That's good stuff. Every once in a while, Monique brings up the R word and says, go easy on a long-term contract. Brooke will say to me, you are so crazy, Dad. You're not going to freaking retire. You can't do that. I think she's right. Connor, any luck on that?
I can't. We're gonna have to find this after. I
Okay.
can't find exactly what you want.
No problem. All right, let's take our final break. This is the Frank and Jill show on the Big 550 KTRS.
Our stomachs are growling around here, and yours probably is too, because, it's that time on the clock when we all start thinking about lunch. It's a great time to think about lunch, and it certainly is plenty of time to go get yourself an amazing lunch today at 3 Bay Barbecue and Bakery. How can I guarantee it's going to be amazing? Because everything they cook there is absolutely delicious. It's one of the reasons at 3 Bay Barbecue and Bakery, they're known as one of the region's best places to go grab yourself some amazing barbecue. What a lot of people don't realize, even though there's bakery in the name, they have some of the best sweet treats you've ever had in your life. I'm talking things like carrot cake, banana bread, all kinds of things. And that's because Carol Gross, co-owner of 3 Bay Barbecue and Bakery, it's one of her life passions to make the best desserts available. You have probably driven by this place many, many times because it's right at one of the busiest intersections in all of St. Louis County at Clayton Road and 141. It's a Phillips 66 gas station. What you may not realize if you haven't gone in there before, or you've just pumped your gas and left, is that when you go inside to where the service bays used to be, it's one of the area's most delicious restaurants. So whether you want to pop in for an amazing lunch with your coworkers or friends and meet up with people in the centrally located place in West County, or if you are looking to have an absolutely delicious option for catering for your next family barbecue event, something that's happening to celebrate a milestone in your family, or a work event, 3 Bay Barbecue and Bakery, the place to go. Give them a call, 636-227-1208 to get that catering order in. Check out their website at 3baybbqandbakery.com. That's 3 Bay Barbecue and Bakery. Welcome back, everybody. It's been a fun Frank and Jill show. Interesting topics. Love how you guys have weighed in on the Royal Banks of Missouri text line as well. Coming up on Thursday, we're really looking forward to having Square One Brewery in, delicious food, brewery and distillery in the city in a building that has a really fun history that goes back to Anheuser-Busch, the original days as well. What's coming up on the press box tonight, Frank?
We'll talk baseball with John Denton from MLB.com as the Cardinals had this magnificent night of baseball last night. And we'll also talk a little NBA draft with Mike DeCourcy, Big Ten Network analyst, also with Sporting News website. He's terrific. We're going to break down the NBA draft. We're excited about that. All right, so Jay Strauss died at 107. He was golfing till he was 105. We did a couple stories on him on Channel 5. I don't know how we got on the age thing, but he had a good philosophical thought about getting old. Pretty good.
Yeah,
That's
really.
some wise advice, isn't it?
It really, really is. I think
All
that's
the dumb things.
Yeah. It's,
Oh, I can't get a photographer. Oh, I screwed up an edit. Oh, I kicked a word. You know, something.
right. Or I'm mad at somebody else for something they said or thought about me, which is just to let all that stuff go. I feel like I would have a lot of years.
On the
back in my
video,
life.
Frank, you can kind of tell because you hear the putt going in at the end. You got the shot of him making the putt. How many putts did it take him to sink it? Was this a first try, or did you have to get one or two?
I don't remember, but your thoughts are right on in terms of shooting golf features. Sometimes it takes many. Yeah. And sometimes when we're doing a story on a basketball player, and I need you to make 3 or 4 in a row. And, oh, my gosh, you can't make 3 or 4 in a row? You're not going to be a good college
Now the
player.
pressure's on.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, there is a different kind of pressure, though, with somebody videotaping, even that a different kind of pressure than a game pressure. They're slightly different things, I think, not the same.
I agree, but I think that if you're like a really good player, you should be able to, even if the cameras are on you, you should be able to make 3 or 4 threes in a row. Like one time we did the story on this player, I won't mention his name, and he was a high school star, and he was going to college, and it took us like an hour to get him making shots in a row. And I thought to myself, there is no way in the world he's going to be a good college player, and he wasn't. And then there's some kids that bam, 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 oh, he's going to be special.
If you look at some of the first stories that were done on Caitlin Clark back when she was high school, when it was really first starting to show that she was a great player, and in one local news story, I think she hit like 6 3-pointers in a row just for because they were trying to get a few to show, and they didn't think, and then all of a sudden she just starts going, and she would have been like, I don't know, 14, 15 years old then, so you knew she was headed in the right direction. If your point is right, if you can do it under pressure while you're getting taped, it might translate into later success. This is great. We're talking about things that have helped with the aging process. From the 314, I changed careers at 40 and became a massage therapist, going to be 70 in October, and love every minute of my job. I think that definitely does help with being able to continue working. Somebody else pointing out that we're already waiting in St. Louis 3 and 4 months to get doctor's appointments, sometimes as long as 6 to 8 months to get in. If our rural hospitals close and more people need to come to our big medical centers in the city, that problem is only going to get worse.
Wow.
Probably a fair point.
Yeah, isn't that a common complaint about people not being able to get in to see the doctor? It's amazing.
Yeah, and we're looking at physician shortages, and of course, Medicaid is what funds our residency program. So I liked Joe's point that sometimes we might need to take a scalpel instead of a chainsaw to some of these cuts to make sure that the impact is what we want it to be in the end as well. Great conversation today, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you again tomorrow. Julie and John and Max are up next on The Carney Show. Make it a great one.